Kerry Werner here. It's Thursday. We got Zonnebeek and Hoogerheide this weekend, so just doing a little scheduled bike maintenance. I have noticed that my brake pads are a little low, so I'm going to replace them. So I'm going to replace my pads, and I probably don't need a bleed, but I'm going to do one anyway just to show you how simple and easy it is with the Duraace 9100 group set. So here are the tools that you need to do a bleed. A flathead for the brake pad pins, a 2mm Allen for the lever bolt to access the fluid reservoir in the lever. You need the hopper with the extender, some Shimano hydraulic, mineral oil, and a syringe. You also need a 6mm open end, or in my case, this mini adjustable to open up the bleed port at the caliper. You also need something to press the pistons apart. I forgot the actual thing, so this will do. Oh yeah, and if you're gonna put new pads in, you need new pads. So first things first, take your flathead screwdriver and let's take the old pads out. So the old pads actually aren't that bad, but it's probably one of those situations where one muddy race would do me in, so I'm gonna put new ones in anyway. Now the pads are out, we'll put the piston spacer in. Next step, we gotta access the bleed port up here at the hood. Roll the hood cover back, take your 2mm and lefty loosey. Next, take your hopper and screw it in where the bolt was. Grab your mineral oil. I always put a lot in here. Take your syringe, and I'll just pull some fluid out of the hopper. So pull the hopper plug out. That opens up the system from the lever side. Take your little nipple cover off. Now we'll hook the syringe in to the nipple at the caliper. So now all you have to do is crack the bleed port open by loosening this 6mm nut. It's way easier to access this with an open end. But once you crack it open a little bit, it should just turn. So now the system is completely opened. And what I do is I'll first push fluid from the syringe into the hopper. Now I'm gonna do the opposite and pull the syringe up to pull fluid through the system. This gets the bubbles out of all the nooks and crannies wherever they are in the line. So once you don't see any more bubbles coming up out of the syringe tube or coming up out of the hopper, then I always end by pushing some amount of fluid back through the system, let the syringe be, and now all you have to do is tighten the bleed port. So hand tight until it won't go anymore, and tighten it off snug with the 6mm. Pull the plunger out and disconnect. That prevents any spilling happening. Deposit your fluid back into mineral oil container. Unless it's super contaminated, then get rid of that. And it'll be contaminated if it's black or you see some particles floating around in there. Mine was pretty clean. Put your bleed port nipple back on. Pull the spacer out. After you pull the piston spacer out, make sure you wipe off the caliper really well. I did a pretty good job without spilling much mineral oil, so all I really have to do is wipe off the outside. If you do spill mineral oil all over the place, get some alcohol and scrub that down really well so that when you put new pads in, they don't get contaminated. So we'll put the plug in the hopper. Don't forget to do this, or when you pull the hopper out, all your fluid will be on the floor. Sometimes if you just grab the hopper, the extender doesn't turn, so make sure you're paying attention to that. In which case, just reach down below the hopper, grab the extender, and then you should be able to spin both free. Once that's out, that's out. You can deposit your clean mineral oil back into the container. Feel like a bartender making a cocktail. Once that's done, replace the bolt that closes up the lever. Don't force the threads, just spin it really loose and let the threads find themselves so you don't end up stripping it. Also, don't over tighten this, just a little bit snug. That way when you go to undo it, you don't end up stripping the bolt out at the 2 mil because you over tightened it. Now that the system is closed, let's put our new pads in. Here's our fresh pads. I went with metallic because while they might not have as good of performance, they do last a bit longer, especially in the mud and sandy conditions that we race in a lot over here. So check the pad, look for the R and the L. R is drive side or right side. It would be as you're riding. L is non-drive side. Push that in from the top. Get your brake pad pin and your flathead. Snug that up. Now it's done. So just put the wheel in. If you want less lever throw than this is standard. It feels fine when you're in the hoods. It might feel a little less when you're down here in the drops. But what you do is unhook the hopper first and close the system up here at the hood. And while the system is still open and the syringe is still hooked to the bleed port at the caliper, you force a little bit more fluid in, and that will make your brake feel a bit more responsive. So force a little bit of fluid in, and with a little bit of pressure on the syringe, that's when you close off the bleed port, and that'll keep the fluid in there and make your lever feel a bit more stiff. That's pretty easy, but if you feel a little overwhelmed or you're not quite mechanically inclined, not confident enough in your abilities, whatever, drop this off at your bike shop. They'll have the tools, they'll be able to do it really, really quick. But I've only had to do this now. This is my second or third time all season, and that includes a bunch of air travel and a lot of time bouncing around in the back of the trailer. So it just goes to show that Shimano's system is pretty foolproof and there's not that much maintenance involved. A lot of the times when you're switching pads, you don't really even need a bleed. You just need to pry the pistons back apart to reset them and then put your new pads in. But I figured I'd show you guys.